We could start with the pledge, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we move on to our printed agenda, I would like to take and have a moment of silence for Mark Casper, who's a longtime dedicated town employee and also friend to many in the community who passed away yesterday morning. So if we could please have a moment of silence in his memory. Thank you. I would also like to announce that the funeral arrangements for Mark will be held. The calling hours are Friday from 3 o'clock to 8 p.m. at the Boucher Funeral Home on Nicholas Street in Gardner. The actual funeral is Saturday at 10 a.m. at St. Vincent Church, Forest Street in Baldwinville, and the reception will follow the funeral at the Otter River Sportsman's Club. For any of you that would like that information as well. As we move on, our first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes. We'll start with the minutes from Monday, March 31st, 2014, and I'll accept a motion after you've reviewed them.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from Monday, March 31st, 2014.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. We have the minutes from Friday, April 4th, 2014. I'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from Friday, April 4th, 2014.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. The next item on the agenda are appointments. We have several positions. They are for Michelle Aiken to the Certified Weighers Committee for a length of 1 year to expire 6/30/2015. Stephen Castle to the Cable TV Advisory Committee, 1 year term, June 30th, 2015 to expire. Christophe Chartier to the Agricultural Commission for 3 years, expiring on June 30th, 2017. Todd Constantine to the Certified Weighers for a 1 year term to expire June 30th, 2015. Ron Davin to the Board of Appeals Zoning for a 5-year term to expire June.
I can test that. He don't live in the town. He shouldn't even be on that board. It's about time your people start to think of him. He don't live in this town, he's on that board. I told that to you, Julie, before. Throw that out.
We can,
Scratch it.
we'll discuss that as soon as we get through all of them and we have a motion. So that was the Board of Appeals Zoning for a 5-year term to expire June 30th, 2019. Lynn Davis to the Certified Weighers for a 1 year term to expire June 30th, 2014. Mark Dubois to the Cable TV Advisory Commission for a 1 year term to expire June 30th, 2015. And Derek Hall to the Communications Commission for a 3-year term to expire June 30th, 2017. Do I have a motion to accept the appointments as read?
Yeah, I would make the motion to accept the appointments as read.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
On that appointment,
that's-
I just asked why is he being put back on there? Fellow lives out of town, on the Board of Appeals, costing me money. If I want to do something to my house, it's costing me a lawyer to get a lawyer to argue with him. He's living out of town and telling me what I can do with my property. If he was so good, why did he buy a house in town and pay taxes in this town? She shouldn't be on that board. I said that the last 3 times he got appointed, 2 times he got appointed. About time you get a new board, take his stand to him. Don't appoint him, that's it.
I also find a little bit of a conflict of interest.
That's right.
Where he's a superintendent.
Superintendent
of
of
the water
water.
department.
That's right.
A town employee.
And a town employee.
Over in that
They're
position.
telling me that I can do it in my house.
Do we, Do we know whether or not he lives in town to make him eligible?
Yeah, he does
for-
not.
He lives in Mitchell.
He lives in Winchendon.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Do we-
Who sent us the appeal, or the appointment? Did it come from the Board of Appeals? The zoning Board of Appeals? Do we know how? Oh, it was just a, do we know, for Ron, for the Board of Appeals for zoning, do we know where we got his request for appointment from?
It's not a request, it's, I started doing the appointments where we ask them if they want to be on it. And with that board, we just ask them if they want to be reappointed. And he said
Should
he
have known
does.
not to ask him.
Is it, I'm assuming obviously that it is a requirement to be on the board to live in Templeton.
I don't know. Kate, do you know?
I don't know.
Okay,
All right.
I
would
do want
also
to hold off
question
on
why
that
we're
one.
doing
We
5
can,
years.
Can
Right.
we amend the motion
would
to,
you like to amend your motion
Tell
to?
him what you're gonna do.
we
with
also
your
need to,
pocket now.
it needs to be July 1st through the 30th. It's for next year,
Okay.
for
So-
all of them.
So all of the appointments begin July 1st,
Should have put that on the top.
2014, and then they expire at the dates read.
All right, I will amend the motion to approve the appointments as read with the exception of Ron Davin for the Board of Appeals zoning.
Would you like to amend your second?
yes, I
Okay.
amend my second.
Okay, so, is there any more discussion? Okay, Julie,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes?
Diane, I forgot your
Yes.
name. And I will vote yes.
We should, though, ask, either Holly or Bob if we can do any kind of research to see, do we
Right.
have a requirement that requires
Yeah, I'll look
board
into
members
that.
to live in town? And I would also question why we're doing an appointment for 5 years. I thought 3
Yes.
years was the most we appointed anyone
No, that's what it is for that board. But I'll look into that too.
Okay, and then we can bring that up, we can add that to the
We had,
agenda.
we had the, nobody could be on committees right now. Tommy Roy could be on a committee. He lived in Phillips, he could be on the recreation committee and stuff.
Right.
Remember that?
Right.
Tommy Roy, they would appoint him. The other board, Jerry, Bobby, and Wilder, they would appoint him because he lived in Winchendon.
Is
Right.
that a bylaw, Pete? Or is that
Don't have to
something
be a
they do?
bylaw. It should be just courtesy. And they want to appoint him, that's what
No,
they
it needs to
claim.
be a
Jerry and them told him, you can't be on it, Tommy Roy, if
Okay.
you're living in Phillipston.
We will, so we'll look into
What's
that. to
fair
get
for
that
one
to
is fair for
summarize,
everybody else.
To see what the legal issue is there. The next issue that we have is to discuss the vacation carryover request that we received. We received a request from Carol Harris that reads as follows. I would like to request that the board allow me to carry 1 week of accrued vacation time over to fiscal year 15. I currently have a little over 2 weeks of accumulated time to use by June 30th. My office is currently without an assistant. I do not feel that it is fair to the taxpayers to have my office closed for an entire week or weeks. Also, with the extra workload, it would be impossible to close for 2 weeks. Therefore, I will be closed 1 day a week in this fiscal year to use up my accumulated time, minus 1 week, which I would like to carry over to the next fiscal year with the board's approval. So that is the request that we have received. If I have a motion to move forward with this, we can discuss it following
I will
that.
make a motion to allow 1 week carryover for the town clerk.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
There are other departments with only one person in that department who are in the same boat. Are you going to allow them to do the same thing?
I can't speak, right, I can't speak to, obviously, to whether we would allow everyone to do it. I mean, I would assume so, unless there's some, they would have to send us a request and be put on the agenda, and, but it would seem that, at least for me, that it would be in the best interest of the town to do this, rather than have these offices closed for a 2-week period or whatnot. Yes.
But during your vote right now, could you just change your wording somewhat so that you cover all town offices that may have a town employee involved in it? or
Well,
not?
the concern would be that because we're just voting on the agenda, it's just this one request. So like this person would have had notice, whereas if there were other employees that might be in a similar boat, they didn't have the opportunity to know we were going to talk about it, to come here and either advocate for or against it.
Okay.
So, but that is definitely something that we can look at adding to a future agenda, or if we receive a request. Yes, ma'am.
I know in the past, we have looked at it on a case-by-case basis, and we have granted waivers. I also think we should issue a caveat because After the override election, I don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen if the state comes in. So I think we need to issue that as a caveat, okay? That what we decide now may not hold.
Right,
Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. Is there any other discussion? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that's more than fair if Carol to even consider the town, instead of herself, because she could just close it down, gone for 2 weeks, so I don't want to use it or lose it, and then when we we have enough shortfall of help these days, then by somebody's willing to work with the town, so I think it's a no-brainer. I'll allow it.
Any other discussion? If not, Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. The next agenda item we have is the automatic amusement license for Peaceful Pines Campground.
I need to recuse myself from this. They're my family.
I did make a last minute change to the agenda I didn't print it up for you guys, to include just licenses.
Okay.
Because we have a common victual license, I need to.
Well, we can do we'll do this one first and then
Okay.
let Diane come back. This is- it's related to this.
That's information.
Yeah, gotcha, okay. And this is so the request that is before us is from Peaceful Pines Campground. They would like to request licenses for 4 vending machines to be used in their recreational hall. It's for 1 pool table, 1 pinball, and 2 children's video machines. And stated in the letter is that they understand that the chief of police will need to schedule time to inspect the machines, as he has done in previous year, and to do that. So I'll accept it.
I will make that motion.
Sure. Yep. And a second?
Yes, second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? If not, we'll vote. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Okay. And then this is the license that okay. So the next item that we have, this is that one, okay. There is the Peaceful Pines. The next common victualer's license that we have is for Cheryl Rota doing business as All Steamed Up at 377 State Road in Baldwinville. It's for a license to expire December 31st, 2014.
I will make a motion to grant a common victualer's license to All Steamed Up.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. The next item that we have on the agenda is to discuss sponsoring a presentation to be played on Channel 8. Holly or Bob, would you present?
We were able to get a copy of the presentation for town meeting through Julie. It's a YouTube presentation now. I did give Julie a letter that we had received about that from Channel 8, concerned that this would be considered political, which I disagree with. I think, the effort there is just to present facts. I don't think there's much any advocacy at all, just saying here are the facts. So I would dispute that there's political content there. That's where we stand. You're actually, I guess you're going to be making a reappointment there. Maybe perhaps a time to discuss that.
Oh, I think we already did.
Yeah, you already made it.
Yeah.
I thought that the manager would be here, the member would be here, but what do you think? Do you think the back and forth has kind of clarified it, and are they now?
The last email he sent clarified it a lot more what their policy is, and just that they need to remain as neutral as possible.
Right.
And that if it could be construed as political, then
Right.
it's really,
But the way around that was to have like the board sponsor it.
Okay.
Okay, so Holly converted the YouTube video to a DVD, which was one of the requirements. And if we vote to sponsor this video as residents of Templeton, then according to their policy, it's okay for them to play.
Okay.
So it's a formality.
Yes.
I'm just wondering what the presentation is about.
It's the presentation from the town meeting, correct? From the special town meeting.
From the special town meeting?
Right.
An attempt to present the facts of the town's financial situation.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Do I have a motion to sponsor this for the
I will make that motion.
second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Second?
You already did.
Oh,
Just
okay,
let-
I can't
That's
answer.
okay. I'll
It's
vote
okay,
you
we're
if I
good,
need
so
to.
third.
If we need you, I'll let you know. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Is there any discussion about this? Okay, if not, we can vote. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. The next item that we have on the agenda is to discuss 252 Baldwinville Road.
Holly, in my absence, has put together the bid document based upon the bid document that was used several years ago. I haven't reviewed it, but I'm going to review it tomorrow, and the board approves, here it is, the board approves, we'll go out with it. We've all, actually, the deadline for posting on the Central Register was Tuesday afternoon, so we have a posting there, but it will not appear until next Wednesday. So if you have any objections or problems, we wanted to get it in for next Wednesday. If there's any problems here, we can I just call up and have them take it off. So that's where it stands.
Do I have a motion regarding the invitation of bids for the sale of 252 Baldwinville Road?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, if not, Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes.
So the process will be, the advertisement appears in the registry, and we'll have an electronic file of that. Anyone interested, we post, anyone interested can contact the office. We'll send them copies of the bid document itself. So,
And does this go on the website as well? Do we have some on the town
It
website?
did last time.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it does. Okay, so we're all set with that. The next item is, I added this item, it was the Selectmen's fiscal year 2015 budget. Just to kind of bring everyone up to date, we, myself, I was present, Diane was present, so there were only two of us, so it wasn't an open meeting law issue. And our town administrator, interim town administrator, went to present the budgets that the Board of Selectmen is responsible for providing. I don't believe that we're 100% sure who sent the budget, whether it was Mr. Ritter or Mr. Bennett, but a budget was sent to the advisory board. So that's what we worked off of. The issue that I wanted to discuss, and I wanted to not make any decisions, obviously on my own because I don't have that power, I wanted to discuss it here, is for the selectmen's portion of the budget. I know that we had requested or whether we voted it or it was dicta, we requested basically a 2% cut, There was some question as to whether it was 2% or 5%, but speaking with the advisory board at the meeting, it seems that not all, but there were obviously departments that complied with our wishes to make that cut. When you look at the selectmen's budget, it looks like we cut 14%, but we didn't. It was because no figures were provided for the personnel administrative expense and for the $22,000 for the audit expense. So if you keep those numbers the same, basically we level funded, we didn't reduce, cut. So that brought up the question whether, and I did the math, the total, it's approximately $3,500 roughly, or in that general area. I can get out my calculator now, to equal a 2% cut. So the question came, did we want to do what we asked other departments to do to our own budget and reduce it by 2%? And if so, did we just want to reduce our expense line item by that amount because of the personnel situation being as fluid in the, obviously, not only are we down to just Holly as our only full-time employee, we don't know what's.
Not just Holly.
Well, not just Holly. Holly does a great job, but we are down to one person only in our office, so at the current time, so we don't know what's going to be going on with that in the future. Obviously, whether we're going to be hiring someone else, a town administrator, I thought that, in my personal opinion, is that we probably should likely not make cuts to salaries because we don't know if we're going to need those for a town administrator. We don't know if, it's very possible that we may, if we elect to do so, if things work out smoothly, once we get a full-time town administrator, we decide that 2 full-time employees are sufficient given our current budget situation to run the office, in which case, obviously, that would free up a chunk of, substantial amount of money. But I guess that's why I put it on the agenda. Those were my 2 questions. One, did we want to cut 2% as we asked? And then also to kind of fill in the blanks regarding personnel administrative expenses and audit expenses. I would assume that we would want those items to stay the same, but obviously the board may have information or knowledge. Well, I'm sure you have knowledge that I don't have. So if anybody has any comments about those things.
Yeah, I would say that we should fund the personal administration expense and the audit expense, although I'm not sure why we need personnel administrative expenses.
That's for health and claims. If you hire someone,
Okay.
Oh,
they
you
have to go get a checkup.
Okay.
And that provides us, what, 4 full-time hires a year?
Not quite.
Or a little less, 3.5?
If the rates don't go up.
Oh, okay.
Right. So we send them to, what is that name?
Health Alliance.
Yeah, Health Alliance.
They charge.
For the checkup. But, if we hire or rehire, that was also a question as well. So, right now, we have a hiring freeze, so that, but we don't know what the future will bring.
So I think we should probably keep that amount as budgeted. The audit expense,
I think we need to go out to bid.
Okay.
And bid that.
okay? Because I think there was a contract for the auditor, and it was
27,000, and we had only budgeted 22. So I don't know where that stands right now.
Okay.
As to whether they've started work or they haven't done any work, I don't know.
Okay.
So shouldn't we appropriate something though?
I'm not saying not appropriate, I'm saying keeping it at the 22, but we should go out to bid
Yeah,
for a different audit firm or maybe the same and just get
that price, because we can't keep
deficit spending.
Right.
The other question I had was on the town accountant salary, and if that was actually enough.
No, it's fine.
Oh, right here, sorry. Right there. What was your question, Julie? I didn't hear the whole thing, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure if that's enough money,
Probably not.
right? So,
And that was, and again, I don't know if Fred presented it or who provided the budget, but that was one department that did do a 2% cut, but then again, I don't know if that was,
right.
how accurate that 2% would be. Did we have any opinions regarding a cut to our budget of 2%?
My feeling was, if the other departments have to do it, then we should have to try to figure out a place to do that too. Whether, they're struggling with their budgets and they needed to come in. I don't know if everybody did, but, like Julie said, going out to bid for the audit, I had asked about phone expenses. I don't know if that's something, when we were at the advisory board meeting, if that's something that we can save some money there. But, there must be some supplies that we could maybe do without, or, it was, what'd you say, 3,500, but I'm not sure where that would be on, these all look like salaries,
right.
so.
I would
Ken,
take it out.
Yes,
if
sir.
the board votes to do it, I'm going to spend much of the day tomorrow wrapping up some budget numbers
Okay.
for the board and for the advisory board. I'll find a way to make that
Yeah,
reduction.
I just think that if
Okay.
we have asked all the other departments to do that, then I don't really see what makes us so special, that we don't have to.
Right. And I do, and one other thing I wanted to change too is that it's currently listed in the budget as a town coordinator, so we may
Yeah,
also
that
want to
needs
change
to
that to
be
town
right.
administrator to make it clear. But I agree with Diane, as much as I can understand the argument that we are bringing on a position that we currently didn't have. We're getting rid of a town coordinator, acquiring a town administrator, that you could make the argument that the change that's going on there may warrant at least level funding, because we likely will have to offer more money to a town administrator because they have more responsibility. However, one of the good things that I have heard from both the advisory board and from others is that the amount that we have currently budgeted, even though it's for a town coordinator, is pretty much in line with what towns of this size in this area pay a town administrator. So maybe a small increase, but we're not talking about paying someone probably $20,000 more. So it may be possible then, that being the case, to be able to do the 2% reduction just through a reduction to selectmen office expenses as a line item. And I think that it would show good faith to the rest of the town departments, kind of, that we don't hold ourselves as separate from them or entitled to special treatment.
Yeah, I would recommend that we just take the whole 2% out of expenses.
And that's what I would probably agree with, is
Take it out of,
expenses.
yeah,
expenses,
that's,
expenses.
that makes sense.
Is that a motion? Or,
Yes, I would make that motion.
okay.
A second.
So the motion that's on the table then, just to make sure I'm clear, we're going to level fund personnel administrative expenses and audit expenses, change town coordinator to town administrator, request that the audit expense go out to bid, and then take the entire 2% reduction from the line item number 15, selectmen's office expenses. Is that sums it up?
correct.
Okay.
That's it, exactly.
Is there any discussion? If not, Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. The next item that's on there is just the overall fiscal year 2015 budget. I was not aware of how many budgets the Board of Selectmen is responsible for until we were at that meeting. There must be 20 different sections or close to it. So there were some questions. Most of the other items had not been provided to the advisory board. So Bob was working on kind of doing some research, some investigation, looking into what things needed to be paid. And I didn't know if you had, we'd spoken about it earlier, but I didn't know if you had an update.
I've done some of those items, I haven't done them all. I sent a message to the advisory board this afternoon that I'll give it to them and to the Board of Selectmen, a complete budget by the end of the day tomorrow.
Okay. Are there any, does anyone have any discussion or questions about those items? Okay. If not, the next item on the agenda is to discuss the special town meeting. As many of you know, there's generally a special town meeting held within the annual town meeting to wrap up things from previous years or to handle other matters that don't fall appropriately within the context of the annual town meeting. And I know that that was something that we wanted to discuss today about opening that.
I have an update for you. I had a call from the Director of Accounts for the Department of Revenue, Jerry Perry, on Tuesday, and he said that they would like to come to town again, bringing the Dennis LaMountain and Deb Wagner from the Springfield office, that's where we report to. But he would come out from Boston, or else would be on a conference call, to review a number of items and look at our records. That's a list there that was sent to Matt. They're coming on Monday, the 14th, at 9 o'clock, and they'd like to go through all these items and then talk about Plan B. Plan B is if the proposed override does not pass, he is preparing deficit legislation. Again, because it's illegal to run a deficit in Massachusetts, we would, if the override fails, the town doesn't have reserves and can't make cuts sufficient to close that $500,000 plus gap. And so the only way we can legally go forward is for the state to adopt deficit legislation, which would establish state control. We discussed the method for that, whether they would have a control board or an overseer. Given the size of the community, they would probably not send an overseer, but rather would exercise control of the town from Boston or Springfield, where any activities of significance, and certainly all expenditures, would have to be cleared by them, and they would be very much involved across the board. So they're preparing that, and they want to come out and take a look at the records here and straighten out some other issues. And I have to tell you that there's more bad news. On the phone, they said that one of the reasons they're coming here is to determine if the shortfall is 505 or 585. There'd been a rumor of that before, but now that's part of their mission coming out here. So this will be an important meeting, and it's going to tell us what will happen, certainly in the next fiscal year. If, and again, what Jerry had said to me was, if the override does pass, the assessors and the Board of Selectmen should schedule a classification hearing for May 6th. And the assessors are moving to do that, so that you can set a tax rate. And if you set the tax rate on May 6th, we get it off to Boston, they will certify the tax rate by the end of the week, so that the town can send out tax bills. The importance of getting tax bills out at that time is that the town is running low on cash flow. In fact, we have a cash flow problem. And you're certainly aware that a note was issued, a tax anticipation note was issued in January. That note comes due in mid-May. I've been talking to Matt about that. He's going to roll it over. But when you issue tax anticipation notes, you have to cover that by the end of the fiscal year. The only way the town can cover it is with tax revenue. And since we don't have a tax rate, that's part of the accumulating problems. So all this has to fit together in terms of what happens if there's an override. If there's not an override, if there's Plan B, then that means basically a straitjacket. And they are preparing the legislation, and will then take control of the town's finances, basically. And Jerry said to me that I should inform the board once again that of the 3 communities that have gone through this process, Lawrence, Chelsea, and Springfield, no one likes it. You ask the residents, it's not just the people in the city governments. By the way, they're all cities. He says no town has ever gotten to this point. He said, ask the folks, he said, while state control might seem superficially attractive to some, he said, it is not something that the public, as well as the people who are in the municipal government, will like, because things will happen that will reduce their services, and a lot of people will be upset. So, but those are the 2 options right now, and he is he's preparing for Plan B, and we need to prepare for Plan A. So.
If an overseer is appointed, is that a 5-year appointment, or is it up to the legislature?
It would typically be 5 years where they would exercise control, and that would involve everything from agreements with employees. It would involve benefits that the town pays. It would certainly involve any wages in the community. They also impose a pretty significant reorganization in the communities where they intervened like this. And I think that's the story.
Yeah, sure, Diane.
I heard you say at the beginning, there's, I haven't heard this, but rumor of a shortfall, instead of 505, it's 585. Why are they thinking
One of the
now it's
reasons-
$80,000 more?
One of the reasons that they're coming here is to look at, I passed along the list of items,
Yeah.
and they want to see how the town has handled some technical accounting problems, including overlay, deficit in our overlay account, and also how the town has reported debt, so-called DE1. If you look on Schedule A, there's the DE1 section. They want to look at that and just clarify. They didn't say definitely that's the case. They need to look at the records and make sure. So.
And one thing, and I just say this just to make sure that as accurate as possible, the information that's out there is that, and I apologize for those who have already heard this, but as Bob had alluded to, I've heard many people say that they think that if, the town's books are this bad, which they are, no one is saying that the town's books are not a mess, because they are, that if the town's books are that bad, maybe the state coming in is a good idea. And besides the obvious issues of home values can fall, because again, you're in the company of those three cities, so you that's who Templeton's going to be lumped together with. Besides the problems that causes, we can't really attract big business to begin with, so this is going to be yet another stumbling block in that path. Boston or Springfield does not send like a team of accountants to work around the clock to solve our problems for us. What it really is as Bob said, it's an overseer, it's someone to oversee. Part of that oversight is that they request weekly or bi-weekly reports that increase the amount of work on our employees, which then makes it more difficult for them to get what they are doing under a hiring freeze and everything else done already. The overseer isn't going to can't come in and raise our taxes to pay for everything. If there's no money, there's no money, and things they will cut, and they don't have to live in the community. So they will be a little more, well, I think they would likely be a lot more technical and practical with cuts, maybe not really understanding the community because they're not a part of it, and what those cuts would mean to people who live and work and go to school here. So I just want to make that clear that this isn't some situation where we get to hand our problems off to Boston. They'll have a half a decade of control over us, and we still will be doing the work ourselves to remedy things.
Another point that he made that I haven't mentioned, they don't limit their control to just the town government. They would also make some cuts in school department budgets as well. So schools will, I think the schools here, in terms of the town-school relationship, the schools really don't get scrutiny by the town officials. It's the school committee. They come in, they look at the town and the schools. So that's perhaps a disagreeable thing as well. And also, Jerry said that the legislature usually requires something from the town. They just don't pass deficit legislation. And that's how we get to this special town meeting within the annual town meeting, which we need to schedule because legally you are required to implement those cuts that you mandated in January. The 5% cuts, town meeting adopted the budgets, and only town meeting can trim the budgets legally. So what would happen would be they would provide for deficit legislation, but also he said, we will insist that you go forward with those cuts. I informed the department heads of that last Thursday, that the mandate from the Board of Selectmen is still in effect. And you'll need a special town meeting in order to implement those reductions.
And the deficit spending is a loan, correct?
Oh, they don't give you the money.
Well, that's right, I just wanted to make that clear.
No, it's a loan.
So the money that
All it is a loan.
It actually
yes.
puts us deeper in debt.
Yeah.
And makes our financial system worse because now we would have an additional $500,000 worth of debt that we have to pay back for the state, which I know that they amortize over many years, so it doesn't So you can get, but it's not free money either. Yes, Mr. Casper?
Bob said about the school budget.
Yeah.
Overseer. Years back, Mr. McNamara and Mr. Bennett got a hell of a fist fight at the school. And they took it to court, and the court ruled that the town could cut the school budget. Yes, really. They had a hell of a fist fight right in the middle of the thing. Mr. McNamara and Mr. Bennett, they're both dead now. He was the superintendent of schools, had a hell of a fight right in the corridor. And they said, Mac said this town can't cut, and Bennett won. Yeah.
Was that before or after 1980?
That was way before,
Before.
way before.
Interesting.
Now, go ahead.
Yeah.
What you gonna say?
As of prior to 1980, the schools had so-called fiscal autonomy. In other words, they would present the town with a budget, and although there was always some negotiation, the town had to pay. Otherwise, they would be taken to court. After 1980, Prop 2.5 repealed fiscal autonomy, and so the town does have authority to
Cut the school budget.
trim a budget if they so choose. Yes.
And I do know that the school committee and the superintendent are aware and kind of have been thinking about, things, cutting teachers and kind of what they would do. So I know that they are aware that they're not under the illusion that, that they would be immune from trouble should the state come in and we have to deficit spend.
Okay. Would the enterprise funds, such as light and water and sewer, also be?
Probably not,
open?
because they're off budget. What they'd be concerned with is general fund expenditures.
So would we be looking then to open a
Open a warrant,
tonight?
for a special town meeting within the town meeting. And, whenever you choose
Oh,
to do
okay.
that, yeah.
Do I have a motion along those lines?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second to open a special town meeting with the annual town meeting warrant for a special town meeting?
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? If not, Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So that warrant is now open.
How long does the warrant stay open?
Well, as long as I think there's a minimum, is 2 weeks,
2
I
weeks,
believe.
14
Yeah.
days. Yeah. So it will close 14 days from now.
Are we gonna have enough information in 14 days?
What dates does
I think we want to leave it open as long as we can.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think we have enough.
May 17th, town meeting?
We have to post it for 14 days according to state law.
Prior to, yes.
Prior to.
And the meeting's- So we'd have to, what, it's the 17th, correct?
So if we closed on the 28th,
I think it's just business.
Correct.
When's the town meeting?
17th, the 5th wouldn't do it.
17th.
28th, I think.
You have to close it by.
So April 28th is when it will close, and then we have
That's
these
right.
2
To
weeks.
vote it and get it
Right.
posted by
So
Thursday.
it will close April 28th.
If-
Right,
if we
that would
sell.
work, right?
Now, again, looking at the worst-case scenario, even if there is an override, that special town meeting will still be necessary because, let's say that the word from Springfield is, you do owe 585, those cuts will be necessary to close the gap.
So April 28th, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to close the special town meeting warrant at noon on April 28th.
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
We have opened and closed the warrant before for
Okay.
certain situations, so if something happens, but we do have to make sure that it is posted
Right.
for 14 days, so.
And then hopefully we'll have all the information that we need by that time.
Just one more thing.
Sure,
Ken.
yes, sir.
I'm sure the people of the town understand that the town's books have not been in order. Okay?
More bad news.
Putting it diplomatically. However, I want to point out that they are being fixed. That fiscal 2013 has been closed out by the Department of Revenue, and they wouldn't do that if the fiscal 13 books weren't up to date. They're now working on fiscal 14. And we have a very competent staff right now who are at work doing this, and I think we can see some daylight. I hope it's not a train coming our way, but I think we see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's probably a train.
Anything else? If not, we can vote. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes.
Hit him.
The next item that we have on the agenda is the animal control contract, which is on the agenda at the request of Mayor Hawk. So, I will explain the situation as best as I can. So we had a contract that we have regionalized services with Gardner. We provide them one truck, correct, and please, anyone on the board, feel free to correct me if I misspeak at any time. They have use of one truck that is owned by the town. And our contract for that first year was we gave them use of the truck and $22,000 or $25,000? $22,000 we paid them. There was, the contract states that it is renewable and that we can get out of the contract with notice at the end of its term. Well, we didn't provide notice that we wanted out of the contract, and we also didn't renew the contract. I know that my legal interpretation may be different from some previous employees or other people, but my understanding of the law is that if you accept services from someone, even if you don't have an in-writing contract, the fact that we accepted their services for a year without paying them any money may obligate us to pay them for this last, because that's the important part, we haven't paid them for the last year. So we have not paid them. It's budgeted, so the money has been budgeted, it was appropriated, it's there. It's not like this is an additional 22 grand that we have to come up with. But that is what the issue is that we are seeking to resolve. We don't have going forward, now or going forward, we don't have a current contract with them. They are still using the truck, but we haven't paid them the $22,000. So we need to, I would, if that's what this board votes to do, begin negotiations for a new animal control regionalization agreement with Gardner. That's the first part of the contract issue. The second part of the contract issue is what are we going to do about the $22,000 that we didn't pay from last year? I know that the viewpoint was, or I heard, we didn't have a contract, they had use of the truck, it's a wash. My personal understanding, not speaking on behalf of the board, is that they did provide us services for that year and acted as our animal control entity for that year. They did have use of the truck, but we didn't pay them for it, so what are we going to do? So yeah.
I don't think we paid them in FY14,
Yeah.
but we paid them in FY13.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, go
That's
ahead.
accurate.
Okay,
That's what
so
I was
we haven't
gonna
paid them
say.
anything yet this
For
year.
fiscal 14.
Right, I'm sorry, right.
It's fiscal
Yeah.
14, so we
Right.
don't have to worry about a prior year bill and all that other stuff. All right, 13 is closed, it's done. They were paid for 13.
Yes.
Right.
Starting July 1st
Right.
of this year, we have not paid them.
I thought we did make a payment in December. No, we didn't. I thought we talked about it.
It was talked about, it wasn't made.
Okay.
Talked about not paid. So I will make a motion that we pay.
And is it a quarterly sum?
It is.
It's supposed to be
There's
quarterly.
four
It's supposed to be
payments.
quarterly, so we should pay three of them, right?
There was certain amounts, I think
Yeah, it's chopped up.
They're billing us more than what the contract,
Yes,
they're trying to
that's
bill
what-
us like 25, 27.
Right.
26.
Yeah.
We should pay what we're supposed to pay, not their.
We should pay what we
Yeah.
had
Paid in
agreed to
fiscal
pay
13.
and then go forward. Huh?
What you paid in fiscal 13.
Yes.
So I will make a motion that we pay what we should have paid according to our agreement in fiscal 13.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any more discussion on just that issue of paying the bill? Yes.
What were we paying the animal officer when they were in town? What was her contract? How much was it?
That was pre-me.
Huh?
It's quite a bit.
We would pay a lot more.
Because we also would have to have.
How much is an awful lot? I figure.
It came out, I think the total budget was about 35. There was a revolving count that there were questions on. There was an assistant. Sometimes there wasn't an assistant. We had trouble keeping someone constantly. And right now, the facility that we used for animal control is now being leased out to a HIMSA. So we don't have a place to put animals. So we really need, I don't see us being able to go back to having our own.
No, I was just curious to match the
Yeah,
figures.
no, there were issues.
Yeah.
Lot of issues.
So any more discussion on the issue of paying the bill? Yes, sir.
I think you should pay the bill in full, so that they know that that's the full payment and it's over with. And we don't have a contract for 14, is what?
Correct. So that, yeah, that's,
So by giving them the payment, you're kind of sealing the deal for that contract. Next year, you probably ought to jump on it and get
We should be
them to say the
negotiating.
same
that,
deal.
yeah, and that'll be the next thing that we
That's the
vote
next
on right
motion.
now, yeah. Yeah, that'll be the next
That'll be
motion.
the next motion.
Is there any other discussion about this?
We're just gonna pay the payments that we should have paid already, not any, we're having a cash flow problem. So I don't see how we can make any more payment to solidify that, but, okay, I just wanted to be clear that I heard that right.
And they did apologize as well that they should have notified us earlier that they didn't, but they I guess they have been having their own issues, and it kind of slipped through the cracks, because it's, for Gardner, it's not a lot of money. So they just kind of noticed that I think another town had paid, and they said, oh, I wonder if Templeton's paid yet, and they looked it up, and that's kind of what happened. So we can vote on this, we have a first and a second? Oh, did someone second it? Did you second it?
I thought I did.
Yeah, Diane.
I think I did.
Yeah.
Now you're questioning me.
Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I can vote yes. And I would also...
I would like to make a motion to begin negotiations on the contract for the animal control officer or regionalization, that's a regionalization, right? With Gardner now.
And I will second that.
Thank you.
So we have a first and a second. My only discussion, my personal discussion regarding this, do we want to appoint someone other than me to?
No, it's
It's the
his job.
town.
Oh, it's his job, good, okay, so we will appoint Bob to negotiate that, thank you.
I knew we were overlooked that.
It's your job.
See, I was trying to deflect it to one of you guys, I didn't think about him down there, okay.
Equal opportunity employer.
Right, so we have a first and a second, is there any discussion about beginning negotiations? Okay, if not, Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. The next item that we have on the agenda is to discuss our town office lease/move. I don't know, are you, I don't know if this was something that,
I can just tell you that I've had several calls from the agent or the owner of the building. They're asking for a 3-year lease here, as well as to expand our space by 4,000 square feet. That would allow the town to move some of the outlying offices into this building, but the price that they're asking goes up significantly in the range of $30,000. Now, we haven't done any negotiating, but that's what the owner is starting out with. He has also said that, unlike prior years, if we do not have a lease agreement in effect on July 1, the building is going to be closed. So there will be no town offices here July 1 if we don't have a lease. So the choices, I think, for the selectmen is, do we want to start negotiating in hopes of getting a better deal than that, stay here? The person that I talked to sounded very firm on that. Or if the board decides, relocate to another municipal building. I did visit the new senior center last week to look at space on the bottom floor to the rear of the building. That space is open. There's no plan to use it. It's not finished. Plumbing needs to be completed. Also, they need to pour the floor. But the COA director said that there's no money and no plan to utilize that space, particularly since there's plenty of space upstairs, for several years, and suggested that one option for the town would be to move there temporarily while renovations would take place, if necessary, to another town building. No surprise that there's been some discussion about East Templeton Elementary as a more permanent location. That building needs work, obviously. It would be very difficult, I think, to do that while occupied. There's some issues there that I think are pretty significant in terms of paint, lead paint and so forth, would have to be either covered over or removed. And so undertaking that renovation of that building, if that's the decision, while the offices were there, I think would be very dysfunctional. Although there's plenty of space there, and I could see in the tour that I did of that building that it would be possible to retrofit that as for town offices, plenty of parking. It looks like an old New England town bridge building. And plenty of space to the rear for expansion if in 20 years the town gets a lot bigger and needs more space. But obviously, this being 9th of April, the July 1 deadline is facing us, and I think we need to have a decision quickly.
In summation, we discussed this issue on Friday. It seems so long ago, but I guess it was Friday as well. And I just want to make a dichotomy clear that when we are talking about temporary space. Now, temporary may be years, but we are not. So when you'll hear a lot, especially in regards to East Templeton, figures thrown out by different people and different entities. Remember that there's two,